Well, I've decided to do another season of Calming the Chaos podcast. This will be my sixth season doing podcasting. Can you believe it? Since 2019, I've been doing podcasting. And this season's going to be slightly different, but it's going to be somewhat the same. And so check it out and tell me what you think. And if you like it, like it. If you want to subscribe and tell your friends, please do. We are still focusing on chaos, but mainly what we're going to be doing is more current events and what people are talking about in the media, in the press, and in our world today. I'm going to be choosing the topics. I'll be interviewing some people, and then sometimes I'll be by myself. And so we're going to kick off season 6 now with my guest, Tom Cronin, who is the self-proclaimed king of calm. Check it out. Welcome to Calming the Chaos, where I help you find peace in a chaotic world. I'm Tracy Cannella, licensed mental health counselor who talks about chaos from a mental health perspective. And I give you self-help resources you can use to calm your chaos in any situation in this world. Isn't this fun? It's not a substitute for counseling or psychotherapy, but just a lot of helpful hints and tools. So if you're on board, feel free to tune in. And now, let the chaos begin. One of the most common things that happens inside of a licensed mental health therapist's office is somebody walks in and they're struggling with some kind of, sadness. Maybe it's life isn't what I've hoped it should or could or would have been. And sometimes that shows up as anxiety. Sometimes that shows up as depression. But today, here we are, we're going to just talk about like how people are dissatisfied with their lives and how they can really improve them and how their lives have caused them chaos. I've got with me here a Tom Cronin, and he is, I guess, essentially known as the King of Calm. I can't really give him a great introduction, so I'm just going to play this thing, and I'm going to bring him up here afterwards, and then we're going to talk about what his ideas are about helping us to improve the quality of our lives, rising above depression and anxiety. So here's what I got for you.
With 4 books published, he travels globally presenting his extraordinary keynote. I'm honoured to present the King of Calm, Tom Cronin!
There is a mighty power in the silence.
Today, we're going to explore for you
the science behind stillness. And now, more than ever, we need stillness.
Within you is the ability to experience a bliss and a joy and a lightness that's always with you 24/7.
This journey started out in 1987. I landed a job on a trading room floor as a broker trading bonds for the investment banks. It was fast, there was lots of adrenaline, and I was making a ton of money. As a result of the stress and poor lifestyle choices, I suffered insomnia, anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. A heavy dark cloud hung over my head every day. I lost interest in everything and felt checked out of life. In the process, I discovered Eastern philosophy and meditation, and it was like everything I'd been looking for in my life, I was finding here in this place of stillness. Very quickly, the anxiety and depression faded away. I felt light, calm, and happy, but as time went by, I felt something bigger was calling me. The meditation changed my life, and I felt compelled to share this with the world. Now, I have 6 books published. I've developed a meditation app and produced the hit film The Portal. I travel the world speaking on stage at conferences like A-Fest, Wanderlust, and Mind Body Spirit. Held keynotes for some of the largest organizations in the world like Amazon, Coca-Cola, Qantas, and UBS. And I've run retreats in exotic locations like Mexico, Bali, Australia, and Hawaii. What inspires me most is hearing the stories of the people's lives I've changed and empowered through the work that I do. To me, this is what it's all about.
Happiness is the very essence of who you are.
This is the ripple effect, the stillness effect.
We all have the ability to master our mind, be adaptable and creative with an inner calm.
We have to get beyond that surface layer of thought. We have to connect to something deeper.
I feel like my role is to let people know this and help them find it.
Our mission is to bring meditation into the world.
My work isn't done until we have 7 billion people living happily, calmly, and successfully, all in harmony.
Join us in stillness.
Thank you.
And Tom Cronin is here with us today. And I thank you so much for being here, Tom. You are a writer, you're a filmmaker, you're a keynote speaker, you do retreats, you do all kinds of things. And your whole mission is stillness of the mind, meditation, and trying to create calm within this chaotic world. So I think you're just like the perfect guest. So thank you for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me along.
Yeah, so what I know that was quite a little intro. Do you want to add anything to that to get our audience a little bit more used to who you are and what you're doing these days?
Look, I think that kind of says most of it. There's not much more to add. I'm very enthusiastic about bringing change to the world. I see so much suffering in the world, and a lot of that we can definitely alleviate. And we have the capacity to live a much better paradigm for humanity. And so a big part of what I want to do is to see if I can support as many people as possible in finding greater levels of peace and harmony and calm within themselves.
Yeah, because so many people are really unhappy with their lives and the quality of their lives, where they're going in their lives. And the people that you highlight in your movie or your documentary, The Portal, it really it shows how people have lives and they change, and it's really super hard for them to navigate those changes that happen in their lives. So I wanted to ask you, first off, how did you get to the point to where you were able to develop, sort of a routine to help people navigate changes in their lives, especially with, the emotions that they feel, like anxiety and depression?
Yeah, look, it came through my own personal experience. I am just like the people that were in that film, the people that may be listening to this podcast, is that I had an extreme amount of misery inside me. I had anxiety, I had panic attacks, I had insomnia, I had depression, I had agoraphobia, I had addictions. And whether we have a really challenging upbringing or not, we're all susceptible to these types of experiences. I know very unhappy rich people and very unhappy poor people. And so what I've also learned through my own journey is that we can try as hard as we can to try and change the outside world so that we feel better inside. But the best route for that is to actually change the inside world and watch the outside world change after. We're in predominantly what's called outcome-oriented fulfillment, which means that I need that world outside of me to be better so that my inside world will be better. But the problem is we have quite often so little control over that outside world. And even if we do have some control, like I want my horse to win in the horse races, then I'm going to be happier. These fleeting moments of outcome-oriented fulfillment will surpass and go by very quickly, which means that we need another outcome. But we're in this constant craving for external circumstances, situations, or acquisitions to make us feel better. And we've got to put the horse before the cart. And this is a big part of my work that I discovered through my own journey, is that when I found meditation and started going inward and started creating inner peace and inner calm and started to get healthier, happier, more balanced, then my actions, my decisions, and the world around me has a ripple effect. And this is the way we're learning now, is that, the outside world is a reflection of the internal world, rather than the internal world being a reflection of the external world. And so this is a big motivation for mine, is to help people to, I guess, find some inner peace, the same as the way I found it through my meditation practice.
I have a lot of people who are, they're really dissatisfied with their lives, but when I suggest doing mindfulness or meditation or some sort of, some sort of thing that allows them to be still, like, stillness and silence, as you suggest, they really balk at that, and they think that maybe they're doing it wrong or that they can't do it right. And but I have found that as well, is that when you can find just these silent moments, even if it's like 5 minutes, that it does help. You actually say there's a biochemical change that happens. So I wonder what you could say to some of my audience members who are just like, oh no, Tracy's talking about mindfulness and meditation. She's got another person on here and she's talking about it again. To help them to understand the biochemical changes that can happen and why it is that mindfulness and meditation are actually good for you.
Well, first, I think it's important that we discriminate and discern the difference between mindfulness and meditation. And this is a subjective viewpoint. So if there's someone that's a professional in these areas, they can definitely have a discussion with me around it. And I appreciate everyone's different viewpoints on it. So I respect someone's different viewpoint to mine. But for me, mindfulness is something that we do when we have our eyes open and we're engaging in the world. We have a very full mind. That is, our mind is very fully engaged in the situation. How am I eating my food? How am I walking? How am I driving? How am I responding to these situations? So being very fully and fully engaged in the mind, in the process that you're in. Meditation for me is very different. It's what I do when I close my eyes and I retreat from the world, and I bring my mind's attention to the subtle and the silent and the still. And now the mind doesn't naturally want to go there. Your mind wants to go to your problems, to your worries, to your regrets, to your shames, to your guilts, because that's where it gets more charge, more activation. So we've got to recognize, secondly, that the mind wants to think. The mind doesn't want to be still. So when people say, oh gosh, I don't want to be still, I can't do that. It's not that you can't do that. And it's not that it isn't there. Stillness is always there. It's just that your mind wants to sabotage that. Now, your mind really doesn't care whether you're having a beautiful life or not. Your mind is much more interested in causing a lot of self-sabotage in your life by putting you into the future with worries and putting you into the past with regrets and shames. And so we want to reclaim sovereignty over the mind and use a mechanism. I use a mantra-based mechanism of meditation. And the mantra makes meditation very, very simple. If you say to your mind, just be still, or if you try to empty your mind, it's just not going to work. The mind will resist and resist because the mind wants to dominate your life. And that's why when they put phones in front of the mind with scrolling apps, the mind is like, you beauty, I can't believe you're doing this to me. This is amazing. And the mind will keep you up all hours of the night with an insatiable desire to seek pleasure and charm. It's just that we have very little sovereignty over the mind. And so we allow the mind to run roost, and that's causing all sorts of mayhem in our lives. So we've got to claim back that mastery over the mind and realize that we're the consciousness that observes the mind and start to discriminate between mind and consciousness itself. And now we've discerned between meditation and mindfulness. Now we're discriminating between mind and consciousness. And now we start to say consciousness itself is still and it's only present. Just the awareness of this moment. And we want to use a mechanism. So I use a particular meditation called Vedic meditation, which is a deep transcending style of meditation. And we use a mantra to make it very easily. And that mantra is based upon when you were born. It's called a birth sound. And each person gets their own birth sound. And so if people have been struggling with their meditation, I generally say, what style of meditation have you been doing? And maybe it's time we explore another option, because I was the same. I had no chance of meditating. I was a crazy drug-fueled drinking money broker. And so meditation was just not something I was capable of doing until I found this technique. And that was a game changer for me.
Wow. Yeah, I've got this thing that I give my clients, and I'm so glad that you did that discrimination between mindfulness and meditation. There's this, I don't know if you've seen this or not, so got the human on the left with all of the stuff in the brain, and the dog actually sees what's in front of it, and that's so you got the mindful on the left and the mindful on the right. And yes, so it's something that you do when you're awake. And so your meditation technique actually involves a mantra, and it's something that's based on sound. You said some sort of like a sound that you can you can isolate from like birth, or something that's like really, I guess, inherent to you?
Yeah, so it's what we call a birth sound or mantra, otherwise known as a primordial vibration. So it's a resonance that you repeat inside your mind, and you get given that by the teacher through a process and a ceremony where you get trained in the art of this particular style of meditation. And those sounds are specific for that particular age when you learn the technique. And what they do is that they they have this quality that charms the mind and takes the mind to the subtle world, the de-excitation. Our mind generally drifts backwards and forwards 50,000 times a day in thinking future, past, future, past, future, past. And what the mantra does is that it attracts the mind inward, away from the outside world to the inner world and to the subtle and the silent. And that's how we get to the stillness, by using a mantra, a mind vehicle.
Got it. Nice. Yeah, I know a couple of quotes that you have on your website here, and I'll put the website up here. And this is tomcronin.com. You can also follow him on Instagram, again, at Tom Cronin, Cronin, for those who are not here to see and are listening. But one of the things that is on the website is, quote, challenging the world one mind at a time. And the other one that I really liked was inspiring 1 billion people to meditate.
Yeah, first I just want to slightly amend it. It's changing the world, not challenging. So changing the world one mind at a time. And what we find is that we can try and change the external world, the world around us, but it's very cumbersome and very tiring. I went to World Economic Forum and we had a screening of our film, The Portal. And I had quite a few meetings with a lot of people that were trying to create a lot of change in the world. But I suggested to them that the challenge they're going to face is that they're trying to change a world where the states of consciousness and the minds of the people in that world haven't quite changed yet. But when we change the internal worlds of all those people and expand their minds and break them free of what we call vasanas, which are tendencies of your mind. So our mind gets programmed and conditioned partly through ancestry and genetics and partly through our social conditioning and our social fabric of our society. But if we can expand the mind and liberate it from those shackles and those constraints and get more wisdom in the mind, then we start to find that people change their decisions and change what they create. And everything about the world is created in an extension of the state of mind of the people that are creating it. And so for me, my primary objective is to help people liberate themselves from the shackles of their mind and the conditioning of their mind and the incessant thoughts in the mind, the worries of the mind, the regrets of the mind, and help them be more present, more peaceful, more calm. And from that place, they start creating not obviously a perfect world. We're not perfect. I still have my own struggles and challenges and don't make perfect decisions all the time. But I certainly become a better person and make better choices as time goes on. And so that's my inspiration, is to keep supporting people, to help them get out of suffering and obviously continue on making better decisions from there.
What can you say about how this process actually results in biochemical change in the brain? Now, I know that, this is my analogy, is that if you have a house and you have a barn, and every day you go from the house to the barn, you wear a pathway through the two, because you just go the same direction all the time. But if one day you notice that a crow starts crapping on your head when you're going in that direction, and you really need to go in a different direction, it takes a little bit more of an effort to make that change. And, my crow crap story through the years has gotten some eye rolls, from people. Although that's the way I explain, the biochemical changes that can happen in the brain when you do things differently, and you mindfully do things differently and intentionally do things differently. But do you have anything to offer in terms of the actual science behind biochemical changes in the brain that can happen through a meditation process such as you have?
Yeah, firstly, it's important we understand that the biochemical reactions happen in the brain, but the biochemicals then flow into the blood. And that's what we feel is what's in the blood, the biochemicals in the blood. So when we're in the sympathetic nervous system state, and I want you to think of S, sympathetic, for stress response. So the stress response is when we've got a marauding tribe chasing us down with axes and swords, or we've got a saber-tooth tiger that jumps out from around a rock. We immediately activate the sympathetic nervous system or stress response. And what happens in our biochemistry is we stop producing melatonin, which is the biochemical to enable us to sleep well. That is not the time for falling asleep. So the body's trying to protect you. Its primary objective is survival. And so we shut down the production of melatonin. We don't want to be feeling all joyful and happy and giggly when we've got a marauding tribe chasing us. What we want to do is feel aggressive or run like crazy. And so we don't produce serotonin. It's not a biochemical that's conducive to a dangerous situation. And your body, again, is trying to protect you. So you won't produce the happiness chemical called serotonin. But most importantly, if you need to go into battle and you potentially have to put a sword in someone's side to protect you from danger, to keep your survival going, you do not want to feel compassion, empathy, and love. And so your body won't produce oxytocin. And that's, again, a mechanism that your body's using to protect you. It produces large amounts of cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. And this is a process that is perfectly designed in life and death situations. The problem is that a lot of us are still in the sympathetic nervous system, as I was, going onto a trading room floor, battling it out on a massive dealing floor. People running late for meetings, people with financial problems, people in sleep deprivation, people in situations that are really challenging at work where they're having a different viewpoint with someone. So all of these can activate this stress response. And yet we need to go about our lives and have families and go to home to sleep. And all these situations have relationships. And so this is deteriorating the fabric of our societies simply because we're in the sympathetic nervous system. And that's where we get the serotonin, the melatonin, and the oxytocin. But we've got to shift that underlying state that the body's in. So a lot of people are getting therapy or taking medications without addressing the core problem, which is they're in the stress response.
Right, like fight or flight is going to be the sympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic, which is paralyzed, I always think about, is going to be the freeze. So
I'd rather call it peace response. So parasympathetic being peace response. It's actually the system that actually reorganizes the body and optimizes it rather than freezes it.
Yeah, it's like rest and digest too. I've heard
That's
it called rest and digest sort of thing too. Tom's website, as I said, is tomcronin.com, and you can go visit him there. Now, from there, he actually has a free movie that he produced himself. And I want to give you one little clip of it is so we can look at just the intro, just a little bit of the intro, and we can meet back on the other side. Is that okay?
Sounds great.
All right.
Whether we like it or not, we literally download the beliefs, the ideas, the assumptions, the worldview of our parents and their parents and the community and culture around us. It's like a program that is downloaded as we go through school, as we watch TV, as we play these games. And the simple truth is that this program is outdated. Not only is it outdated, but this program is killing us.
One thing that was in common to all previous civilizations, Roman Empire, Mayan, Aztec, etc., is that they all collapsed. The tricky difference right now is that for the first time, we have a completely globally interconnected civilization, so collapse would actually be an existential scenario.
I cannot say enough good things about this movie, which is free on your website. Let's put the website back up again. And for you who are just listening to that and did not have the ability to catch the actual, video footage, it is so worth it just to go to Tom Cronin, TomCronin.com, and get that video and listen to it and watch it. I think that the visuals were great, and you produced it, and it's so professional. I was actually looking at it yesterday, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm kind of intimidated talking to you. But then, I realized you're just a person just like me, and we're gonna have this conversation. So, So what made you want to produce this video?
I was very inspired by The Secret. The Secret film managed to create omnipresence with it. That is, that it managed to penetrate the households of the world with a very esoteric subject matter that if you think and feel about something, you'll attract it, which is kind of crazy to think that that was only something quite new to the world back in 2000, I think 2008, 2009, something like that. And so with that inspiration from their capacity to do something quite profound, I wanted to do the same with meditation and make a film about the power of meditation, because meditation transformed me out of crisis. And really, I tried so many different things to find a way through the mayhem and the darkness that I was in. And it wasn't until I found this particular style of meditation that it really changed my life. And I wanted to showcase that in a global way through a film. And so that was the impetus and the inspiration to make the film.
Well, I'm so glad you did too. We have some people in the film who we want to highlight, and I'm just going to go ahead and show a couple of clips of these people and what they have struggled with. And and then what we could probably do, I think, after that is just to see, how it is that you found these people and how these people found you. I've got 4 of them. Okay. We can either do them one by one, or we can do all 4 and just meet on the other side. What would you rather do?
Maybe do one by one, and then that'll give the viewers some sort of time to engage with us while they're in between watching the clips.
All right. So let's start with Heather.
I never even thought about coming back here. I didn't really know if I didn't think I would. When I first stepped on that cliff so many years ago, I didn't even want to jump, and I did it out of a need to please.
Come on, Heather, come on.
It was a team tradition after a training run. Everyone was jumping, and something inside of me was telling me that it was too dangerous for me, but I ignored it. I remember the splash. I remember when I first hit, how it felt like concrete. The only thing I could do, I couldn't move, was to tell the coach to call 911. I remember sort of how my coaches reacted, how the assistant coach was panicking, and I just remember that all I could do was move my lips.
Three fractured vertebrae.
She's set for Olympics pre-qualified.
Truly so wonderful to be here with overcome so much.
When I broke my back, that was the first time ever in my life that I thought, I have to be still. And I tried to block out those thoughts of whether or not I was going to compete again. Stillness was very difficult for me at that time.
What do you think about Heather? Heather's story is absolutely magnificent. From a little girl who is a fast runner to a person who broke her back, doing something she instinctively did not want to do, which was jump off of that rock. She seems like a fantastic human and a wonderful person. I wonder if you have something to say about Heather.
Yeah, there's so many different layers to Heather's story. One is obviously, having that very intense upbringing with her parents. As she says, she was always walking on eggshells around the house. It was just a very difficult, uncomfortable time as a child. And her impulse and compulsion to run was kind of like a metaphor for running out of her life. And so she became a very successful runner. And in the end, she was about to compete at the Olympics, but she broke her back. And then that story, the layer in that story is all about listening to intuition, because her intuition was speaking to her very loud and clear not to do it.
Don't do it.
But quite often we're unable to listen to that fine level of feeling in our body because our mind is so noisy. And a mind will say things like, oh, they might judge you, or you might not be accepted, or you might not be liked if you don't do this thing. And if we quieten the mind, we're able to listen to that intuition. But for her mind was very noisy that time. She didn't listen to the intuition. She jumped, broke her back. And that was a turning point in her life because she couldn't run in the Olympics after that. And so, she went into a really dark place. And again, the reason why she's in the story is because meditation played an integral role in helping her get out of that particular situation mentally and mindfully.
Harvard was this ivory tower bubble where people, they lived in a way that just didn't make sense. I think after a while at Harvard, I started to have panic attacks because I wasn't sleeping right. I always felt uptight because there was always more projects, more classes, more things to worry about. And I stopped feeling good. I just didn't care about things the way I used to care about everything. The pain of my past had opened up a big hole, and no one knew. You know, there was this voice in my head that was very hopeless and self-destructive. The key was not listen to it, right? That it was just one of many voices, but it would get louder. There was an article in the newspaper about suicides that have happened at Harvard by jumping off the bridge. And I realized I wasn't the only person with this negative voice in my head.
Yeah, that was pretty powerful. Not only did she draw the bridge and she was by the bridge, but she was actually thinking suicidal thoughts. Yeah, what do you want to say about that one and
Yeah,
why you chose her?
Again, it comes back to Zwei had been under immense pressure on so many different levels, from her grandmother being very violent with a mental health illness, her mum and dad just constantly working all day and all night in the Asian takeaway restaurant, she being under immense pressure and alienated in a world that she was very unfamiliar with. She grew up in the sort of the very poor areas of Philadelphia, and next thing she's in Harvard, studying, and she was surrounded by extremely wealthy people, and she was very unfamiliar with that world. So she had a lot of things coming at her from the outside world, and that was affecting her inside world. And the good news is that she managed to find meditation, and that really helped her to find a way forward in life and liberate herself from the influences and the effects of her outside world. And now she runs a great organization called Calm Clarity, helping bring meditation to communities, which is really exciting.
I remember after 9/11, the country was in panic and we were desperate to leave. When I realized the border was already closed, I became hysterical. My colleague went to negotiate with the border patrol, and I needed to find a way to calm down. I watched some little Afghan girls, future refugees. They seemed so happy playing. And for a moment, my fear disappeared too. We finally got lucky because the Taliban ended up letting us through. And the girl I was playing with begged to go with me. I had to leave her. All night we were driving with a Pakistani escort through the warring tribal zone to save our lives. And it was because of this little girl that I did come back to Afghanistan, and I committed myself for so many years. But I realized that who I am to work for peace in the world, if I'm completely broken, anxious.
Yeah, what do you have to say about Amandine?
Look, Amandine is an amazing human being. You know, she worked with the United Nations in some of the most challenging locations in the world, from Africa and Middle East, helping to bring peace to the world. But she realized as a human rights lawyer that she was broken inside. Again, you know, she was riddled with anxiety and stresses and trauma from all sorts of atrocities that she'd managed to navigate her way through. And now these days she teaches meditation and yoga, you know, because she found that she really had to use some certain tools to bring about greater internal peace. And she actually was working on an inner peace corps so that we could bring inner peace to the United Nations and to the communities that are working out there in the world. And yeah, she's a great human being now. She's doing some, and always has been doing some amazing work, I must say.
Yeah, it sounds like some of the meditation practices have helped her and others as well.
I went to a diner and ordered a bunch of food. As I'm sitting there, I just broke down uncontrollably. There was nothing anybody said or did. I had way too much going through my head, and it just came out. It just seemed like everything happened so slow. It was like I can hear sounds, I could smell the food, I could see people, you know, instant reaction looking over at me. No one understands me. I'm in pain. I don't fit in. I'm in pain. And I'm replaying everything in my head. Smell, the sound. Is it really my fault? I don't know. The visions of seeing bodies. There was a lady sitting next to me, and have you ever killed somebody before? Help me understand. I can't. The girl's like, Mommy, the soldier's crying. What's wrong with you? Dude, chill, relax. Is it really my fault? I'm in my own head like, big punk, you really crying? Have you ever watched human body get blown to watch the child? No one understands. I don't fit in. No one understands. Can't stop thinking about it. Right back to started to panic, breathing really hard. Is it really my fault? I don't know. I feel like I can't. Can't relax. No one gets me. I'm alone. A gentleman came over and put his hand on my shoulder and just tapped me. It's gonna be okay. PTSD is a motherfucker.
And that was Buddha. So yeah, what do you have to say about Buddha?
He's an amazing man. Beautiful, big heart. Obviously, he served a lot of time in the US military and had a lot of trauma and PTSD as a result of that. And again, he was really questioning whether he wanted to go on with life. He was in such a bad way. And then when he started going to the Veterans Affairs, they had a facility there for veterans with major mental health issues, and they started teaching them these deep Vedic meditation or transcendental meditation, and that was a game changer for him. It really brought about an inner peace in him, and now he's a very successful actor. He's going about doing some incredible acting roles in TVs and movies. So yeah, he's really turned his life around and doing some good things. What we want to do is we want to make enlightenment mainstream. We want to make enlightenment cool. We want to make enlightenment a human experience that we can all have and achieve and experience. Then from there, we'll be more unconditionally loving. You know, that could be 1 or 2 generations away, but that's pretty close compared to the last few thousand years of rape, pillage, and plunder that we've been experiencing on the planet. So,
well, is there anything else? First off, I want to go ahead and thank you again for being on the show. Everybody check out www.tomcronin.com. And also follow him on Instagram at Tom Cronin, TomCronin. But yeah, any parting thoughts that you have?
My feeling is that we are in for some challenging times ahead. And we're going to have financial challenges. We could potentially have some global conflict challenges. We could have some, environmental challenges, displacement challenges, and life itself is speeding up. And one thing we want to make sure is that we don't just get swept along by the collective current of everyone being stressed and overwhelmed. One of the things that I like to suggest to people is that we have the capacity to stand tall and stand sovereign, regardless of the chaos that's happening around us. But it does require a daily diligence and a daily practice. So if you can find a teacher and if you want to learn to meditate, reach out to me. We do have programs that we can support people around the world to learn to meditate, because that gives us that capacity to stand a little bit more sovereign, a little bit more calmer in a world that may not be calm, particularly going forward.
All right. And you know where to find Tom Cronin, TomCronin.com. Thank you once again for being with us on Calming the Chaos podcast. And I will check out this last, I think it's the very end of his video called The Portal. And it is available for free. Just go onto his website and check it out.
I would love to be a motivational speaker. I would. Reaching out and letting the next person know, I understand what you're going through. I've been there. I was kind of stuck in a rut. And I'll meditate to start my day off positively. And it allows you to see clearly the things you need to see clearly the most.
I try not to define myself from a physical place anymore. Now I'm just someone that's learned to listen to and love herself.
We don't have to continue things that we've inherited from the past if they don't work for us, right? It's not about levitation or special powers. It's about your ability to stay in that state and not get hijacked by real life.
The stillness is what helps me connect with myself. It's just a beautiful feeling, as if I'm sort of just floating in like the universe.
When the sky is falling and the moon has no face, when the bar is breaking and you lose in your faith, hold on, keep breathing. We're just passing through. Don't worry where the wind is blowing. Life is saying hello and goodbye. We'll keep on running as long as the stars keep on burning, lighting candles where there's still time. A time for love, a time for high, a time to live, a time to die, a time for love, a time to lie, a time for you, you and I. You and I.